Good afternoon. We're live here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, and joining us here at the PAO console is the International Space Station Flight Director, Mike Lammers. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
One of the big activities last week that's continuing this week is the upgrades for the ISS KU communication system.
That's right.
Can you fill us in a little bit about what was done last week? That was a lot of activity.
Sure. Last week, what we did is we installed what we call KU Communications Unit number 2. You'll hear me call it the KU Com Unit, but this was the KU system on board the space station is really what allows us to utilize the space station. We have another system called S-band that's a radio system that we use to talk to the crew. Previously, it was the only way we could talk to the crew, as well as issue commands to the vehicle and get kind of systems telemetry that basically allows us to keep space station running. It's sort of like the city maintenance department, if you would. The KU band is really the high rate data where we have megabits of data coming down to bring down science and all the nice video that you see. And really, as far as using the space station for what it's intended for, that's all done with KU band. The KU band system that we had on board the vehicle is over a decade old. When we're looking at end of life with the vehicle and maintaining KU band systems over the next decade or so, we had to determine whether we were just going to build new versions of what essentially is mid-90s technology, or we're going to take the next step and kind of come up with more advanced communication systems. And we chose to do more advanced communication systems, and what we did last week was the tail end of about 4 years of work to upgrade both the system on board the vehicle, which was this piece of avionics called the KU Com Unit that was developed by NASA and Boeing, but as well as a number of upgrades on the ground network, both at Johnson Space Center, the Marshall Space Flight Center, and out at White Sands, where our TDRS downlink is. And that 4 years of planning all sort of came to a head last week, where we had the crew essentially pull out the old system and install the new system and activate it. And we activated it from the ground. And it actually went quite well for the number of what I call moving parts going on. We got the unit in. It took the crew all day. Both Tom and Chris Hadfield spent the entire day doing it, and when we were done, we activated the system, did brief checkout of RF systems, and essentially ended the day with a fully functioning KU band system, both providing us payload data like the old system did before, but as well as we picked up 2 new space-to-ground voice channels, space-to-ground 3 and 4, and we picked up 2 brand new video channels. So we've gone from 4 video channels to 6, and if you ask me, I think they look a little bit better, but we'll see how that works. And we also changed the way we record a lot of our video on board. We used to do it with tapes, which has some artifacts and things. It's sort of like going from a VCR to iTunes, I call it, where you go to a much more clear digital picture, and we're able to bring down a lot more, record a lot more video, and bring down a lot more video from the vehicle. So all went quite well.
That's great to hear. It was a big effort. You kind of alluded to it. Some of the changes and the upgrades are visual things that we can see the new channels, but some of them are not. Can you speak a little bit more about some of the benefits of this?
The single biggest change that we did is we brought the downlink rate of the vehicle from 150 megabits per second of data to 300 megabits per second. So the amount of payload data that we could bring down has doubled. And just to give folks a comparison, as a lot of us have broadband cable at home. I know I do in mine. My cable company, the basic broadband is 6 megabits. So multiply that by 50, and that's what you've got coming down from the vehicle, which is, I grew up in a world working on some other satellites where we talked on kilobits of data. So it's a tremendous amount of data that we can bring down from the vehicle.
And for folks who don't know, like when we're looking at the timeline that both the ground team and the on-orbit crew use, you're actually scheduling that bandwidth. So this
Oh
is
yes.
a considerable enhancement to the
Yes,
operations.
and that's right. And what we used to have to do is there's certain payloads on board the vehicle, especially ones that use a lot of video, where we had to very carefully schedule them, and essentially we couldn't run them all the time because we ran into bottlenecks on the bandwidth. Much like you might at home with internet. If you have somebody that watches movies, you may find that you can't do something useful on your end on another computer, and we're hoping to reduce a lot of those uh, bottlenecks, as well as being able to support payloads that use a lot more bandwidth.
So I know it's still new. You're not even fully done yet. It's only been the weekend, but what's been the initial feedback so far from the team?
The initial feedback has been great. When we activated this last week, it went almost by the book, like we practiced it in testing. It was kind of funny. We ran about an hour behind when we were configuring some settings that I liken to a lot like if you're trying to get a router to work at your house, and you can't get it working, and it was the same type of settings, but we got them corrected, and it's been working really well ever since. The feedback that I've gotten from folks is that the video looks more clear. We haven't yet taken full advantage of all the bandwidth. We're kind of ramping that in. I will tell you that Space to Ground 3, the crew got right on that and started using it right away, which has made it actually rather challenging for our Capcoms to keep track of all the conversations going on. But it is kind of nice. We used to, with Space to Grounds 1 and 2, with 6 people on board, we used to run into uh, basically tie-ups on communications where essentially the crew was waiting in line on Space to Ground, and with 3 available, that hasn't happened. In fact, I was on console last week, and there's a payload called BASS, where the researcher actually talks directly to the crew as they manipulate flames inside of the glove box, and it was actually very nice because we could just give them Space to Ground 3, and they were able to just talk, and they didn't have to worry about interrupting some of the other conversations going on with the other 5 crew members. So everyone was really happy to see that.
That's a great example of how this is going to really enable, since science experiment and research work has become such a dominant activity on board. This is really going to enhance that.
Right, and that's what we're all hoping for when we did this.
So now looking at the week ahead, can you kind of step us through what the plan?
Sure. Looking at the week ahead, the main thing is we've done the hard work. We've gotten the first unit in. We've been working with it, and it's been working great, both at the end of last week and through the weekend. We have to put in a second redundant unit, which we call KU Com Unit 1. Even though it's the second one going in, it's number 1. But that's actually an enhancement to the system, because it's actually a redundant piece of equipment. Until this time, our KU band system, a single failure could take it out, which was probably acceptable a little bit earlier in the program as we were assembling, but we've become so dependent upon KU band for our science community that getting the redundancy in there is going to be a real boon for us. So on Thursday, what we plan to do is install that redundant unit, and we hope to activate it as far as possible. We're still kind of going through the process of when we actually will fully turn that on and activate it and start using it for science, because we're trying to balance an outage of KU band that we have to have to activate that with our science users who have been continuing to schedule and do science activities throughout this week, which has been pretty challenging. It's a lot like changing the tire on your car as you're driving along. You want to minimize those outages, but yet do the upgrade.
You alluded to it a little bit earlier in this interview, the teams and the work that's gone into this. It was described last week, I think, by the MMT management, saying that these upgrades are accelerating the station communication systems about 10 years, and it didn't happen overnight. Can you share with us a little bit more
Sure.
about what it took for those years of planning and testing to
Sure.
make this happen?
I know that we've had teams of folks, really fairly involved teams at both Johnson Space Center and Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, working on this for about 4 years, along with the engineering community who's been developing this, and Boeing. I've been involved for about a year as it came to fruition. Those folks, just learning how the system works, they worked together, and they did testing almost every week with hardware that we have on the ground, just to get ready for this. One of the kind of the challenges is, in something that's sort of unique about this particular system, is it's jointly run by flight controllers, both in Huntsville and at JSC, and those guys have been working really well together, and kind of going through the challenge of not being able to walk next door and talk to your office mate about a problem. And I've been, just very impressed by the whole team and how they've been working together.
And we should tell us a little bit about your role in this.
Sure, I'm the flight director that's been the lead for this, and so I've been working the ops integration and the activation, and so my teams, both myself and then of course a key group of flight controllers here in the room, have developed the plans and procedures for taking what engineering has given us and then figuring out how to operationally utilize it and how to operationally install it and activate it. And it's a really great team I have. They all, they're the ones doing all the work. I just kind of, my job is just to enable them to do their great things, and it's been really a lot of fun to do this.
Well, congratulations on the progress so far. I know there's been a lot of enthusiasm from the team on how it's gone, so kudos to you and all the team, and we'll stand by and continue to watch the activities unfold this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Again, that was Mike Lammers, the International Space Station Flight Director, overseeing some of the KU communication system upgrades. Thank you.